Hello again everyone, this is Vincent and this is episode 2 of the Manufactoria walkthrough on Kongregate. I'll get through around 4 to 5 levels in this episode, but how I'm going to be doing this game is I'm going to be working from left to right, and every time I reach some column, I'm going to be working that column from top to bottom before I go another another column to the right. Because as you can see, this game isn't exactly linear. There are lots of tree diagrams everywhere. Some levels have several prerequisites. Some levels are the prerequisite for many other levels. And I'll just leave these secret levels to the last because they're probably the hardest ones. So the first level I'm going to be doing is Robofish. And oh, sorry, before I forget, in this set of six, the top branch is going to be levels where we have to accept or reject the robots. The bottom branch is where we have to take an input and then modify it to give us a certain output. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I do one of the bottom levels. So Robofish. So in this level, we have to accept the robot if it contains absolutely no red. So it could be n number of blues, 0 blues, 3 blues, but if there is a red anywhere inside it, we have to reject it. So how this machine works, pretty simple. Robot falls onto this branch, and if it doesn't see any symbols, then we just send it down. If we see a red, we send it to the floor. The recursion bit comes in is, if I read a blue, remember that readers or branch conveyors will rip off the first symbol that they see rip off the first symbol if it's a blue or red. So it rips off the first symbol and it sends it to the left, and this conveyor belt will send it back to this branch. So the effect of this is it will keep ripping off these blues until either A, we see a red, in which case we reject it, or we run out of dots, in which case we accept it, because we know that every dot that we've tested has to be blue. Sorry, it sounded a bit repetitive. So in this one, we would accept it because it's all blue, keeps ripping it off until we run out. In this one, there's a red, so we have to reject it eventually. Right, the next level I'll be doing is RC Cars. This is the first level where we have to encounter the blue and red writers. And like the other parts, you can orient them using the WASD keys, arrow keys, or rotate them using these buttons, flip them. And the effect of a writer is when the robot enters a square with the writer, it will put that colored dot at the end of its tape. So, and it will follow the arrow afterwards. So this blue writer, when the robot falls onto this writer, it puts a blue dot at the end, and red dot puts a red dot at the end. So in this level, instead of having to accept or reject a robot, what we have to do is we're given a certain input, and we have to follow their specifications and send the output to the exit. So the input is any string of reds and blues, but our output has to be, we take the first symbol of that string and put it at the end. So if it started with a blue, we would rip off the first blue and then put a blue at the end, and so on, and similarly for the red. So I'll just take the liberty here to introduce some notation I'm going to be using, because it's a lot easier to see, especially in the later levels, what my machine is doing if you can see the string, or as I picture it, as it's being modified as opposed to just running the machine, because it's hard to keep track of what is where. So I'm going to be using video captions for this, and the notation is, if I use a tilde, that will represent any generic string of reds and blue dots. And I could put a subscript, like label it number 1, number 2, which will say that I want to separate these two strings because I want to give them different purposes. If I put a specific letter, whether that be R, B, G, or Y, those will represent specific colors which I am looking for because they affect what's going to happen in the machine. And R, B, G, Y stand for red, blue, green, Y respectively. If I put a star, it just means it's a special dot that I'm looking for, but I'm not exactly sure what color it's going to be. So how this machine works is robot's going to fall into this branch first of all, and it's going to just be a random string. If it starts with a blue, I'm going to rip the blue off using this branch, the branch conveyor, and then it will send it to the blue writer, which writes a blue at the end. So we've actually moved the blue to the end, and then we send it to the exit. And similarly for the red, rip the first red off, put a red at the end. If there's no dots at all, we can't really do much, so we just accept it. So we should be putting a blue at the end of this one. So that's what it says by an output. Instead of having to reject a robot by putting it to the floor, accept a robot, sending it to the exit, we have to accept all our output, all our inputs, but they have to have been modified in some way according to the specs of the level. So the next level I'll be doing is Robobugs. Now we don't have to worry about writers here because this is the top branch level in that set of 6. So in this level we have to accept if the tape only has alternating colors. So it could be red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, so on and so forth. And it could end on either red or blue because it's still alternating, or it could start with blue and go red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, and so on and so forth. Another way of saying this statement is if I ever see 2 of the same color at the same time, so if I see a blue, blue, or a red, red, anywhere in the string, I have to reject it, otherwise I accept it. So how this machine works is if I start with a blue and I see another blue, I'm going to send it to the floor. If I see a blue, I want to look for a red. If I see another red after that, I will send it to the floor. If I see a blue, I send it back up here. So where the recursion comes in is if I see a red blue, it will bounce down and then bounce back up. And then it comes back to here and we look for another red blue. If there was another blue, so it's red blue blue, if we reject it, and so on and so forth. So red blue, red blue, red blue, red blue, red blue, red. It could end on either red or blue, but in either case, once we run out of symbols and we haven't rejected it yet, we know that all the symbols are alternating. So red blue or blue red in whatever order. And then it follows the grey arrow into the center conveyor belt, which is to the exit. Similarly on this side, if we start with a red, if we find another red, we send it up. If we find 2 blues, we send it down. Blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red. Keeps bouncing it up and down until we run out of dots or we reject it. So this one we would accept because it's completely alternating. This one we wouldn't because there's a blue, blue somewhere in there. So that's Robobugs. Okay, the next level is Robocars. This is where we first see the green and yellow writers. Now what's special about green and yellow is, first of all, the input string will never ever have a green or a yellow in it, except in one of the secret levels, but we'll get to that later in the last couple of episodes. So for all intents and purposes for the main levels, you'll never see green or yellow in the input string. So whatever green and yellow you will be reading, you know you're the one who put it there. And the other special thing about green and yellow is if the string starts with a green or a yellow and the robot happens to fall onto a blue-red branch, it will not rip the dot, it will be neither red nor blue, so it just follows the grey arrow, and we do not rip the green or yellow dot off. So in this level, we have to give an output where we replace all the blues with greens and all the reds with yellows. So how this works is the robot falls into this blue-red branch, and if it sees a blue, puts a green there. If it sees a red, it puts a yellow there. And remember that it will put these at the end of the tape, and that we're reading from the beginning. So keep chugging along this string, and eventually at some point we will have run out of our blue reds. We will have replaced all of them, and when we've replaced all our blues and reds, we've only got greens and yellows left because that's what we replaced them with. So we read the blue, it writes a green at the end and puts it back into this branch, and it keeps bouncing in between these two until we reach a green or a yellow. And when it reaches a green or yellow, we know that we've finished copying everything, so we just so it follows this grey arrow and we put it into the exit. See it bouncing around, And there's was the first one, and the yellow will go down the grey arrow. Alright. How am I going for time? Wait. Oh, wait. I am over time. So I will see you in the next episode then.